Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel AWS DevOps Niche Level. So in this video, we are going to see a lab demo on how to create a Kubernetes manifest file easily. So we need not build the manifest file from the scratch, but instead of that, there is an option to create a base version of the manifest file, which can be edited later based on our requirements. So let's see how to do that. So before that, the Kubernetes resources, whether it is a pod or whether it is a service or a replica set or a deployment, whatever is the resource, they can be created using any of the below approach. One is imperative approach. So in case of an imperative approach, what we do, we give step-by-step instructions, what to do and how to do. That is, we give the instructions in the command line. So for example, or we can see the examples, but if you see the declarative, which is a second option, there is no step-by-step instructions given. The details are provided in the manifest file. So if you want to create a pod, you will create a pod manifest file, or if you want to create a service or a deployment, etc., you will create the appropriate manifest files. That is your declarative approach. But in imperative approach, we just give the commands in the command line using the kubectl. That is your imperative. Okay, now let us see an example for imperative approach. So for example, I want to create a nginx pod using a command line. So I give the command kubectl run -- image is equal to nginx and the name of the pod is nginx. So this is an example of an imperative approach. So you are directly giving the kubectl command in the command line for a particular resource to be created. So similarly, let's say I want to create a deployment. So I can use another kubectl command, kubectl create deployment -- image is equal to nginx and the deployment name is also nginx. Okay. Similarly, if I want to create a service, so I give this command kubectl expose pod nginx and exposing it to the port 80. The name of the service is nginx-service and the service type that I'm using is a load balancer, right? So if you see here, on this imperative approach, for creating a pod, we ran a separate kubectl command. For creating a deployment, we ran a separate kubectl command and we ran a separate command for creating a service. So this is your imperative, right? Where you give step-by-step instructions, first to create a pod, next to create a deployment, next to create a service, etc. Okay. Now, for the declarative, what we will do? We will directly create a manifest file for the list of resources to be created. Okay. So declarative, always remember that the resource created within Kubernetes using the manifest file, which is a YAML file, it is called as a declarative approach. Right? So for example, if I want to create a pod, so this is how the manifest file looks like. First, I'm defining a API version, then kind is equal to pod, then metadata, where I'm giving the name of the pod, and under the labels, I'm giving the app name. Under the specifications, I'm defining the containers and what is the image that it has to download from the Docker Hub. So all these things I'm creating as part of the pod manifest file. Okay, again, so the name of the pod is also nginx-demo app, and I'm going to expose the pod on the port 80. So this is how we create a manifest file in order to create a pod. Okay, so now I want to avoid creation of this manifest file from the scratch because it's a YAML file, it's very sensitive. If you are building a manifest file from the scratch, there might be a possibility to have syntax errors, right? So in order to avoid that, so what I'm going to show is how do we create a manifest file using a particular command line that will generate a base version of the manifest file. So let us go ahead with the lab demo. So what I will do is, first we will create a pod. So let's say I want to create a Nginx pod using the imperative approach. So let me directly go ahead and give this kubectl command in my EKS cluster. The cluster that I have set up is the EKS cluster in the AWS environment, which is what I'm using for this lab demo. So if at all, you want to create a EKS cluster, I have a video already, prepared on the EKS cluster. I will provide the link for that video, which you can refer. So now let's say I want to create a pod using the imperative approach. So I'm just using this command, kubectl run nginx pod minus minus images nginx colon latest, and the port is 80. Okay. Now let me check the command kubectl get pods. So this is the pod that I'm running. Now let's say I want to create a service for this pod so that we can access it via the load balancer. So I'm saying kubectl expose pod, the pod name, again, minus minus port is equal to 80. The service type is load balancer. Okay, so now it has created the service. So I will say kubectl get service minus o void. Okay, you can see here it has created a service nginx-pod, and the application is exposed via this load balancer. This is the load balancer endpoint, and it is exposed on the port 80. So let us just see whether we are able to access nginx from the load balancer. So let me go to the load balancers tab here. This is the load balancer that is created. Currently saying no instances are in service. So let me go ahead and check the target instances. You can see here, now both are in service, right? So let us try to access the nginx application via this DNS endpoint of the load balancer. Okay, great. You can see here now we are able to access nginx. And this is via the imperative approach. Now what I will do, I'm going to delete this service, kubectl delete service nginx-pod, and I will also delete the pod nginx-pod. Okay, the service has been deleted now. Now I will go ahead and delete the pod also. I will say kubectl delete pod nginx-pod. Okay, now the pod is also deleted. So now I want to go ahead with the declarative approach where I create a manifest file for my source creation. But I want to create that manifest file very easily, not creating it from the scratch. So what do I do for that? So I'm going to run this command, kubectl run, the pod name is nginx, minus minus image is equal to nginx, and I am giving this particular parameter minus minus dry hyphen run is equal to client. Okay, and I'm outputting that to a YAML file, to this particular file, nginx-definition.yaml. So what this command will do, it is going to create a pod manifest file, basically a base version of the pod manifest file using this dry run equal to client. Okay. So this parameter here is going to create a base version of the manifest file. So let me try this. Okay, now you can see here. Let me open this file, nginx-definition.yaml. Can you see here? It has already created a pod, a base manifest file for the pod, right? So we need not really build a manifest file from the scratch, putting in each and every line and taking care of the indentation, etc. Right? So directly we can have one base version of the manifest file created, and any minor changes we want to do, we can edit the manifest file, and we can, let's say I want to change the image from nginx to Tomcat or some other application. So you'll have to just change the appropriate sections here. Okay, but our manifest file is ready for us. Okay, so secondly, I want to create a manifest file for a service. So let me go ahead and use this command. So kubectl expose pod nginx. So minus minus name is nginx hyphen service minus port 80. Again, you can see I'm using this parameter minus minus dry hyphen client and outputting that minus o YAML. So I'm outputting this content to a manifest file, which is a service manifest file. Okay. So enter. So nginx pod is not found. Let us see what is the pod that we created. kubectl. Okay, yeah. First thing is I need to create a pod. So we have created the manifest file for the pod. Okay, but we need to create the pod by using the kubectl apply command. So I will say kubectl apply minus f nginx hyphen definition dot YAML. Apply minus f. Okay, so you can see here the pod has been created. kubectl get pod. Now I will create a service also in the same way, the easy creation of the manifest file. I delete this existing file. So now I'm going to take this command. kubectl expose pod nginx. The name of the service is nginx-service, exposing on port 80. And you can see I'm using this parameter again, minus minus dry hyphen run equal to client and outputting to the YAML file, right? So this will give us the base version of the service YAML file as well. Okay. So now this is our service YAML file. Let me just edit this file, and here I'm going to just make a small change. So I will say instead of status, I will say it is type. So the type also, I will have to align this with the ports. Right, okay. The aligning with the ports, or maybe one step this side. Okay. So type, I can directly say load balancer here. L will be in capital. Load balancer. Okay. Let me delete this entry. Yeah, fine. This will be our final manifest file for the service. Now, let me create the service by applying this kubectl apply minus f nginx hyphen service.yaml. The service has been created. kubectl get service in slow wide. Okay, you can see here the sub service is exposed via the load balancer. So this is the load balancer endpoint. Now, if I want to access nginx, I click load balancers again, and this is the load balancer it is creating currently. And if I look at the status of the instances, it is still, the registration is in progress. Let us give it few moments. Okay, one is already in service. Okay, great. Yeah, the second instance is also in service now. So now what we will do, we will access the load balancer endpoint and see whether the nginx application is giving a response. Maybe it is still in the process of registering it. We check now. Okay, great. Now you can see here, Nginx application is accessible. So this is how you can create a manifest file easily by using that dry run equal to client option. Okay, so that will be a very useful option. Whether you want to create a service manifest or you want to create for a pod, etc. In that particular kubectl command, you straight away use this parameter here, dry run client, and output that command to a YAML file, and your base YAML file is ready. Okay. So I hope this content was helpful. So if at all you like this content, you may please feel free to share it to your known circuits. That's all I had for this video, and I will meet you all in my next video.